Welcome to Charts This Week. My name is David Linton. I run Updata, and this week's edition comes to you for Monday, the 14th of March, from London. And so, first of all, we look at Brent. We've said always that we felt that once it broke this $36 mark, we said this for the last few weeks that we would run into the low 40s. In fact, if you look at our reports, the long-term reports, we've predicted with the seasonality that we would recover into the sort of low 40s, maybe as high as 45. Here we see the cloud chart, all this resistance on the lagging line. We're through on the price, but the lagging line is still below the cloud, so we're still in bearish territory on the lagging line. And if we look at the seasonality, we see here where our driving force has been for a move higher. It's this time of year that we'd expect to do that. We've probably got another 1 or 2 months to run potentially on strength in the price, but then we hit the seasonal weakness, and we've seen that characteristic over previous years. This is in your Updata system. If you want to draw the seasonality charts, they're here in the menu, so you can and do that. And you can do that on any product, in fact, but of course oil is a very seasonally traded product. All this data coming to you from Thomson Reuters Icon. So of course Updata sits on either your Icon, your Bloomberg, lots of different data sets. So here we see the trend in crude over the last couple of weeks. Just starting to break down there on Brent. We're just back through the cloud on the short term. So this does imply that we are going to see a bit of a setback. So this week probably not looking so good for Brent. If I press the Shift T keys on your Updata system, we do have a downside target back to 35. But we need to move below 39.40 for that to be activated. So interestingly, we do still have upside targets here. So if Brent does continue to make new highs, we do see upside into the mid 40s, 44, 43.80. So that's where we do see upside potential. But now we do have this big selling thrust that gives us a downside target back to 35. So watch that closely. And of course, if you look at WTI as well, that gives us a little bit of heads up. Still bullish on WTI, not quite through the cloud yet as we are with Brent. Shift T here, notice we don't have that downside target pressure, but we do have 48, 40, 80, 41.50 and 39.10. So upside here anywhere between sort of 4 and 8%. But keep an eye on that Brent chart now that we're below the cloud. If we take a look at the 1 minute chart, these, of course, if you're trading crude, very granular charts, again from Thomson Reuters Icon, 38.25, and that one is activated, so that's the place that we look to at the moment. So Brent just turned a bit bearish for this week. If you take a look at US NatGas, it has recovered slightly to 180. We see the bounce here from 160 to 180. We do expect some seasonal strength at this time of year. Go into the second quarter, tends to be the strongest quarter of the year for NatGas on the seasonal chart. And we're seeing here that we do. We have recovered here where we were this big long move below the cloud and then a recovery to the upside. Shift T will give us the trends and targets. We still do have 175 hanging over us, and we've got upside targets into the 193, 195. So it does look like NatGas in the short term could go either way. All eyes will be on storage numbers this week. The 1 minute chart, Shift T, gives you the trends and targets. You can see these downside targets given and met. We do have an upside target to 183. Not that exciting from where we are now on the price. Keep a close eye on those 1 minute charts, and of course also our morning call reports where we call NatGas every day. If we take a look at European gas, we see here on MBP, these prices are all OTC prices, either coming from your Trayport screen or the Updata Energy feed, live consolidated broker prices. And we see here that we are just nudging the floor again at around 28 pence per therm on NatGas. So the correlation with Brent has dropped right off. So MBP not following Brent prices at the moment. Here we see the range really that we're trading. I've said it's at 27.50 to 29.50. This is the range. We're below the cloud at the moment, but this is quite choppy market conditions for gas, teetering along the floor. 26.25, 26.90. We do have some upside targets to 30, so MBP could go either way. If you're trading NatGas, of because many Updata users are. The 1 minute charts from your Trayport data. Shift T in the Updata system will give you the trends and targets. Here we do have downward pressure with this downtrend, downside potential of about 3 and 6%. And mixed upside pressure, but we'd favour the downside with this downtrend at the moment. So we expect not a great week for European gas prices. TTF, again, teetering along the floor. On the daily, we're below the cloud. On the 60-minute, we see here on the 60-minute that we really are in this range, have been for a few weeks now. So much the same picture. Shift T and mostly downside targets here, around 5 or 6% downside. So again, we see that kicking in. We have here on the 60-minute charts, NCG, Gaspool, all falling a bit lower as well. So not looking great in the gas markets at the moment. If we go to look at power, this is German power prices, again coming off the Updata energy feed, could be coming off your Trayport screen. Bearish here on the daily. On the 60-minute chart, we're just popping back down below on the cloud. Will we come back and test this this level of 2050, the low that we previously saw? Downside targets are 21.43, 21.65. So that's where we need to just keep an eye. And then the 1 minute chart, of course, if you're trading German power, shorter term, 21.43, 21.40, downside targets there to play for. So again, not looking great. UK power below the cloud as well, UK baseload here teetering along the floor, and here we see Nordpool, the calendar contract recovering above the 60-minute the cloud there. This is on the daily chart, and then if we look on the 60-minute chart, we're seeing a recovery there. So Nordic power looking a little bit brighter, just in this uptrend here above the cloud. Shift T gives us the upside potential, 1925, 1950, about 3 or 4% upside there. So one of the better looking markets for power at the moment. And we look at currencies. Dollar index has really pulled back again, but is making a lower high above this low that we saw in February. So if we recover to then go higher than this level and get back above this cloud, the long-term position on the dollar still does look pretty bullish. Here we see the short-term picture, quite a big move there, downside move down, gives us targets now down to 92.30, 91.60 and 91.90, so about 5% downside on the dollar. Sentiment does look a little bit like it might be changing. Keep an eye on those charts. Here we see the euro chart, and this is the daily chart. Big range here, basically 105, 115. That's the real story. And we are bullish again on that euro chart. And if we look at the 60-minute chart, Shift T gives us some upside targets. So these are contrary to what we saw on the dollar index, of course, and about 6% upside there. Multiple targets kicking in at the moment. So euro strength just starting to show its hand, and that's quite interesting. And if we look at the 1 minute chart, Shift T here. Gives us and you can change the box size from this bottom right hand corner, gives us a little bit more granularity. At the moment we'd favour the upside, uptrend here, 113, so we're holding this above this 111 level at the moment. It's looking pretty good for the euro this week. If we look at some secondary currencies, sterling recovering, hitting resistance here on the cloud, has had a good strong recovery in March. The 60-minute chart here we see, again, still above this cloud here, all the way above the cloud. We'd need to get back below 142 for this to turn bearish. All trends do come to an end, of course, so just keep an eye on this chart. But here we do have upside targets now. 145, 145.80, so quite a bit of upside potential there, and a slight downside target. So sterling just looking a bit stronger at the moment. Norwegian kroner we see here is just recovering a bit off that those 930 levels. So that's euro strength, buying more kroners, of course. So Norwegian kroner just weakening slightly there. Swiss franc much the same. And here we see sterling Swiss has recovered a bit, but that trend is down. So sterling is looking strong, but not as strong as Swiss this week. If we take a look at stock markets, we start with the S&P 500. Of course, the big story here on the S&P 500 is that we're just starting to nudge back above this cloud on the lagging line, but it's not conclusive, and this noise is a little bit worrying. This is the weekly chart. Not many people look at weekly charts, of course. This is still worrying. The pattern that you see in the weekly chart, not so clear on the daily charts, was we made a low and then a lower high at these levels, then lower lows, and if we make another lower high, then we come back to test these lows again. We need to break this 2100 for this recovery to be convincing, but it does look like it's got potential to do that just as we start to break above the cloud. We need to hold this week above 2000. It was quite positive that we did close above 2000 on Friday. But we're not conclusively out of the woods yet. That shows up on the daily chart as well. We're not above the cloud here on the lagging line. We still do have these trends hanging over us. Lots of support showing here on the 1 minute 1% chart. And then if we look at the 60-minute chart, that is bullish, of course, because short term we have been recovering. And if we take a look at the 60-minute targets, we've got about 6% upside here on this target with multiple targets. So that's quite bullish in the short term, but these long-term levels are still weighing over us, so we have to watch those. If we look at the NASDAQ 100, interesting, the NASDAQ didn't at all turn bearish on the cloud. It never went below on the lagging line. Still below on the daily, bullish on the 60-minute. No downside targets on the 1% chart. But on the 0.5% chart, we do have a bit of downside potential. And we're at the moment, we've got about this upside potential here, but not as much as we saw on the S&P. About 5% upside of this latest target given there. So there is potential recovery there, but again, we just need to watch those long-term levels that they don't create resistance. If we look at the European markets, we start with FTSE. So the FTSE 100 below the cloud. Again, all this data coming from Thomson Reuters Icon. This is my weekly, my daily, my 60-minute, my 1%, my 0.5%, and my 0.1% on the 60-minute chart. So here we see we're below on the weekly, just struggling to get through here on the daily at the moment. We're through on the 60-minute. Downward targets here as well, so quite a mixed picture here. We've got a new upside target, 14% upside on FTSE, so that would take us to 7064, get us back above the 7,000 level. But we do have these downside targets hanging over us, and of course we've got to get through these clouds, especially on the weekly. Take a look at some Asian market, or take a look at the DAX first of all. DAX. Strong performance in the last week or so as well, just here recovering back, but below on the weekly, clearly below on the daily, above on the 60-minute. So we still have bearish medium and long-term pictures on most of these markets. The short-term picture looking quite strong. So it really does matter that we get through these levels on these medium-term charts. So more work to do. If we take a look at Asia, we take a quick look at the Nikkei. Here we see the Nikkei chart, and on the 60-minute chart it's bullish, but on the weekly and the daily we're still bearish. Downside targets hanging over us. Mixed targets here, 12% upside. So Asia could fly, but of course again that medium and long-term picture hanging over us. If we look at China, this is the market, of course, that could cause an upset. Just here on the weekly we're holding on that cloud, but interestingly, we could see ourselves just wander out of that range. It's really, China has to really recover very strongly in order not to turn bearish, and that looks like a big ask at the moment. It's got to climb this wall of worry all the way back above those levels. So the market's still looking a little bit concerning there. The weekly, we're below on the daily, 60-minute looking quite bullish, but these downward targets again hanging over us, and a lot of downside there. If China makes new lows, this is really catastrophic. We've got two targets, 43 and 49% downside, so just really have to watch out for China making new lows. And then if we last of all take a look at the Sensex, the Indian market, one of the stronger looking markets in Asia, bearish on the weekly, bearish on the daily, just starting to hit the cloud resistance here, but again we've got these upside potential. Not great upside targets here, but looking a little bit better than it was. That's it for this week. Until next week, happy charting. See you then.